Hello, everyone. This is Al Gilbert, the Chief Listening Officer at AdvisoryOptions.net. Welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Fame. I love listening to interesting people, and my interesting guest today is Matthew Holman. He is currently helping people and groups and companies talk about mental health. He's a podcast host. He's a TEDx speaker. He's an instructor. He's a Samaritan. He's a trainer. Matthew, I don't know how you find that much time in a day. Welcome.
Thank you, Al. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I always start at the beginning, and that is, I can tell from your accent that you come from a distant land. Where did you grow up, and what did your parents do for a profession?
Wow, interesting. So I grew up in the town that I live in still. So I'm born and bred in a town called Basingstoke, which is in Hampshire, which is to the west of London in England. And I've lived all my life, 45 years. I've had the pleasure of traveling the globe, so I didn't really need to leave the town and live anywhere else. But I have family roots in the town going back many generations, actually. So we've got a few hundred years of our family heritage that's in this town. So it's a great area that I live in. Well, I love it anyway.
And
my parents,
go ahead. Good.
Yeah, no, my parents were just normal, everyday sort of workers, worked in factories for many years. They worked for some electronics companies. My dad latter years was more into the quality control of factory production and things like that. So yeah, just a normal working class family. I have one brother. We had no pets when we were growing up. We had a very stable relationship with our family, and things were just really, pretty good actually. We had a good family community with our extended families, of course, being very close to us.
Well, that's great. Well, I was going to ask you a question about your journey to mental health, being an advocate for that. And I did listen to your podcast where you described how you'd been in the first accounting, then the travel business. And then around 2016, you had an epiphany of sorts. It seems by that time you were burning the candle from both ends, commuting across the Atlantic, spending less time with your family than at work. And then the company you worked for at the time showed you the door. So you had a kind of epiphany. I've had that experience. I know that pain. But I have a two-part question from that. Was that, looking back, a blessing in disguise? And number two, if that event had not happened, do you think you eventually would have shown yourself the door?
Really interesting. Yeah, I can look at those moments and say the event had to happen. It really did, because I wasn't in a good mental state, and I think that's something that I didn't really recognize, and that's why I'm really passionate now about telling people about mental health, well-being, how things impact on our, the mental side of what we're doing. That moment had to happen. At the time, it was horrible. It was the most horrendous thing. But I am a big believer and strong believer in, learning lessons from experience, and that experience has taught me so many valuable lessons I can now reflect on. At the time, I struggled a lot. If it hadn't have happened in that way when I was shown that door, I don't really know what would happen next for me. I was already dabbling into the mental health world because I'd already, a year before I, lost my job in 2016, had become a Samaritan, which is a listening volunteer service here to support conversations around mental health or people that are struggling. So if I hadn't have walked out or been pushed out or taken through that door, I really don't know where I would have been. I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful, actually, they did it. And I can look back now with that view of, I'm so happy that they did that to me at that point, because I needed it. I really did.
Yeah, my personal cliche is that I've never lost a job that didn't lead to a better one, or I never lost a personal relationship that didn't lead to a better one.
Yeah. And I love that. Yep.
Was mental health ever an issue for you in your youth?
Not really. I had a moment in my life when I was sort of early, well, about 11, 12 years old, I guess, where I had a serious sort of physical illness where I had a deformity in my hips. And I had to have serious surgery when I was 11, 12 years old, which took me out of the game from sport and things like that for about 4 years. So it was a very long-term recovery. I wasn't able to walk for 3 months, and for about 9 months I was on crutches, and so that was something that did have a bearing on my mental health. It actually helped me to become more of a person that I'm very grateful I became, which was I was quite outgoing, and I really wanted to help others. So empathy was born. I was in a children's hospital for 9 weeks, and I was 10, 11, and there was young children in there that were going in with cancer and other illnesses that were really life limiting. I only had a problem with my hips. That's how I felt. So it sort of gave me that sort of zest for life of supporting and helping others. I don't really talk about that very often because it's sort of in the back of my mind now. But thank you for asking the question, because I do think that was something that was quite a poignant moment in my world of mental health.
Right. So, what do you tell young people in their 20s, maybe 30s, who are at the peak of their physical health? And this is how I grew up, and I feeling that if I could just find the right job, the right career, with the right amount of money to buy the right amount of toys, to attract the right women, mental health will take care of itself. What do you tell young people who think that way?
You know what, well, that was me. I'm sure that was you. That was my life in that moment. I wish somebody had sort of taken me in and sort of, but the trouble is, it's that telling people versus people listening. I talk to people, but I give them sort of understandings around what I've been through as an experience, because I can't say you're going to go through the same. What I would say is talk about how you feel. That's the thing that I'm always conscious of. So if you are feeling that it's too much pressure, if you are feeling overwhelmed with the work that you're doing, change. I've changed many times throughout my career. You said it at the beginning. I was an accountant, then I went into sales, then I went into tech. Now I'm in mental health. Never be afraid to change if it doesn't feel right. The problem is, I think I got so caught up in this thought of, I've got to do more, I've got to be bigger, I've got to be better, and I've got to climb the tree, that I didn't think about taking care of myself on that journey. I was very fit. I was fit because I played a lot of sport, and I always have, and I still do. I was also on the other side burning a lot of energy in other ways, excessive drinking, partying a lot, thinking I was invincible, and it really had a
Yeah.
massive impact.
Yeah, I think for me, the problem starts, early in our youth, just in the language that we use. Now, for instance, people would walk up to me and you and they say, "What do you do for a living?"
Yeah.
Now, when people ask me the question, "What do you do for a living?" I say, "Well, I walk my dogs, I enjoy my wife's cooking, I have a glass of wine, I read a book. For
Yeah.
money, I'm in sales."
Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
So yeah, I think people can, if they just can think differently about that question, they can think differently about mental health.
Definitely.
Um, so as I said in the beginning of our conversation, it's not for my personal mental health, and when I stress about things, it's not always about it's not always someone's fault when something's go wrong. It could be their responsibility. So I try to avoid finding either myself at fault, like I made a mistake or I'm not smart enough, or I try not to find the other people at fault, like this company doesn't know what it's doing, it doesn't listen to me. So I try to find that neutral place. Because once I come from a point of fault, I have to defend that position no matter what. What do you mentally do to try to find that neutral place, that demilitarized zone, if you will?
Well, I've become very good at listening. I think that's an important element of it. A lot of it comes down to communication, right? And it's a lot of the times we miscommunicate, we misinterpret, we misunderstand. And I'm one very much that's tuned into sort of clarifying points and understanding, because, if we're ever going to understand each other, we just have to listen properly. Not just about the cursory thoughts of, I'm not feeling great today, but really listen to that. What does that mean? And I think that's the key to the way mental health and well-being works. So for me, I do a lot of work around stopping, pausing, taking regular breaks. And that's a big thing for me, is not having back to back. I work a lot with organizations, corporates today, and I encourage managers or any employee really not to do back to back meetings, because it doesn't help us in any way. We can't be fully functioning for 8 hours of the day if we don't have a break. So I make breaks happen. I take the right time to recover. And so when I turn up for an event or I'm doing something, I'm ready and I'm prepared and I'm fresh. And that's really helped me with my mental well-being. Really helped.
One of the one of the things. Hold on one second, please.
Sorry.
One of the things, I lost my train of thought now. But I'll get back to it.
That's right.
Why do people consider? Well, how do people make the difference between mental health and mental illness? What's the definition?
So, okay, really clear. This is something we train a lot of, actually. Mental health is something we all have. Every single one of us has mental health. We cannot avoid it. It's part of who we are. It's like physical health. it's about how we feel, how we think, and how we behave and react to things that are going on around us, the trauma, the event, the COVID crisis, all the things that are going on. It's how we manage that within our brains. Mental illness forms when traumas, accidents, incidents, events, genetics, and things like that start to play a part in some of those challenges. That small stress can become a bigger anxiety. And then when that becomes overwhelming and overbearing, we can feel that there's too much going on and not be able to cope, and we struggle, we pull ourselves back to our beds and sort of disappear from society. So it's being really clear, we all have mental health, we have to take care of it, we have to look after it. Practicing positive mental health is a really important part of it. So enjoy the events that you do, enjoy the things that you do, have a job that you love, that will make you feel better. And when you don't and you struggle and you feel overwhelmed, that's when the risks towards mental illness start to show themselves: depression, anxiety, and the likes of that. Hopefully that is a simplistic view, but we all have mental health. Let's not try and, nobody can opt out, by the way. And I want that to be really clear. Nobody can say, I don't have it. Just remember, it's mental health. Illness is totally different. Same with physical health, physical illnesses. They're two separate parts.
Understood. Understood. What role does religion or spirituality play either in your mental health or in your opinion of mental health?
I'm an atheist, so I don't really have a view on it. I don't have an issue with it. I think it's very much, to the individual. Although recent situations from my family and I, we have sort of consulted or counseled with some people that from a religious area. So they have prayed for our family, and they've given us sort of some. I guess there was some elements of that which really helped me. Especially because it was very close to home with a very close family member of mine that was struggling a lot, and we needed some extra help. So, maybe there was some divinity in there, but I think everybody's individual. That's the key with all of this, with the journey that we're on as with our mental health. It's individual. It's influenced many different things, whether that's, technology, religion, science, whatever we see it as, it's influenced by different stuff. And the interpretation is very different by each person.
How does the management of mental health change with aging? I'm 69, though you wouldn't know it to look at me.
Oh, absolutely.
But I've noticed that the way I manage mental health has become, I just say, more of a challenge as I've gotten older. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's you go on this curve, because when I turned 40, that was when I first started to think about mental health. I'm 45, I'll be 46 in a couple of months. And when I turned 40, I hit that sort of what they call middle age, right? That was the letter I got from my doctor, was come and get your middle age check. And all of a sudden I started to be more conscious of mental health, more conscious than I'd ever been. As we get older, I think the reality is, of course, there's a lot of anxiety around things. Will I have enough money in my pension fund? Will I have health into my older years? And, tragically, recently, a couple of friends of us as a family have passed away at 50, early 50s. And it sort of brings to that reality check into the fragility of life and what's going on. So I think you become more conscious of that. When you're younger, you think, well, I've got many years until retirement. I don't have to worry so much about this. But it is important to tune into it as soon as possible, so you're aware of it. And
being aware is half the education, I think. One thing that I've noticed, at least here in the U.S., and I don't know how it is over in Europe, when I go in for a physical exam, my doctors never ever ask me about my mental health. They talk about my physical health, but they never ask me about my mental health. Why is that?
Well, I can tell you from the UK's perspective, the training that doctors, a general practitioner doctor, so your physician, would have on mental health is very limited unless they've specialised in that topic. One of the areas I work with a number of different people, but eating disorders in particular, this is a significant increase in the number of people that are experiencing eating disorders. Yet general practitioners or doctors, physicians only have 2 hours training in eating disorders, and a lot of them don't even participate in that training. And it's sort of this realization to say, as a generalist, you've got to cover so many things, every part of the anatomy. But as a specialist, which is what we're really trying to strive towards, is mental health needs its own special recognition. The services to support mental health are very limited everywhere. The number of people that can have those interactions and engagements with people is limited. I had an experience just last year with the General Hospital, where they were servicing a client or a patient, and the patient had a mental health issue. They didn't know what to do. this is the challenge. This is the big challenge of mental health, having the
Yeah.
right people in the right places.
So your doctors don't ask you either. How
No,
you,
no, not at all. You have to
no.
go there. And if you tell them you've got problems with your mental health, they'll ask you to fill out a questionnaire. You fill out this questionnaire, and then they'll determine at that point, this may be a bit extreme, but they'll determine, okay, you've got depression. Here's some antidepressant tablets.
Yeah, it seems like they immediately default to mental illness, not mental health.
Yeah,
If they
yeah.
have depression, take a pill.
Yeah.
Let me end up on a couple of upbeat questions, if you will. Then, what kind of things make you cry? Now, not cry for grief, but cry for joy. So,
Cry for joy.
what would touch your heart, bring a tear to your eye? I mean, for example, I can listen to a Frank Sinatra album and have a glass of wine, or I could read a Hallmark card, or what kind of things like that might touch your heart?
You know what? Human kindness is the thing that touches me, and seeing acts of kindness where people just do something just, from their heart. I reach out to people regularly and send little messages, just hugs or whatever it might be, and I get them back, and I just love that. I just think it's such a simple thing to do. I'm not a big crier, to be honest with you, but I have cried in the last 12 months, definitely. More tears of pain than tears of joy. But I just, I love nice things. I think I'm a kind person. I think I'm somebody that is very much in touch with my emotions. Maybe I don't show them as much, but definitely, the kindness thing at the moment, I think that's a big movement that we're trying to sort of push towards, is more about being kind to others.
Yeah, well, goodness knows we need it now more than ever.
Oh, absolutely. And that's it. And that's exactly it. At this time, when we can't have physical interaction and engagement as humans at social level in presence together, we can be kind in other ways. And it can just be as simple as, picking up your phone and texting somebody just to say hi. And we forget that that's a form of kindness by being connected. And it's,
Yeah.
I love it. I get random messages from people, and I just think it's the greatest thing.
Excellent. And just to wrap up, tell us about your 24-hour marathon, February 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, well, it's not a marathon, so I'm not going to be running. Gosh, yeah, I love running, but I've done one marathon that took me about 4 hours, but yeah, not 24 hours. So the idea of it is, I started this podcast of my own, Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, back in November, 19th of November. It was launched really quickly. There was not a huge amount of planning went into it, and managed to sort of run out a season up until Christmas of 18 episodes with amazing people. What I found really important about that was it was engaging lots of people in the conversation they've never been able to share with many people. Maybe just in an intimate setting with friends or family, but never with a wider community. The podcast is very much about that. So the 24-hour podcast recording and 24-hour human stuff that I'm doing is really a recognition of we can do a lot of conversations in a very short space of time. The marathon is a 24-hour event. So it will be launched on noon on the 3rd, finish at noon on the 4th of February. And it represents an important day here in the UK in particular, which is called Time to Talk, but it's going global. So I'm going to be having conversations. I'm recording 24 times 24-minute podcasts. They'll be launched every hour with 24 amazing people. I know you're on it as well. So, looking forward to ours. And I think we might be in the middle of the night. So you might be propping me up and calling people to get me coffee or some matchsticks.
Okay.
It's going to be amazing. And it really is just that opportunity for people like yourself, Al, or anybody that participates, just to tell people a bit of their story. And it's not about recognizing everybody on there with mental illnesses. It's about recognizing your journey of mental health as you've progressed through, and you said it at the beginning, through your career, through the changes that you've transitioned through in your life, through your age changes and things like that. And that's what it's all going to be about. It's going to be
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it. My personal cliche, and I think you might share it too, is that my credibility is my vulnerability is my greatest credibility, and I'm happy to share it with you at that time. So I want to thank you for spending this time with us. We've been talking with Matthew Holman. He's a mental health advocate, a podcast journalist, a trainer, a teacher, a Samaritan, and an all-around good guy. Thank you, Matthew.
You're welcome. No worries.